This is our annual AIAA Industrial Training Night. So, and I am, if you don't know me, I'm Pinak Sharma. I'm the media director for this year, and I'm going to be emceeing with my friend Viraj. So, tonight's going to be an opportunity for all of us to engage with our amazing panel of speakers and graduates that have been through the process of industrial training. So, if you don't know, industrial training is not only a great opportunity to get great hands-on experience, in the engineering world, but it's also a compulsory part of our degree. So, you will have the opportunity to ask questions through the Slido. If you want to join there now, I'll give you a couple of minutes to join. But as we'll be going through our presentations throughout the night, feel free to add your questions. And after, at around 6:30, we'll be going through a Q&A session where you can ask the questions. You can put your hand up as well. Okay. But before we continue, first and foremost, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, particularly the Badigal people of the Eora Nation, as we share and stand on their land tonight. We also acknowledge all Indigenous presence that are with us today. We pay our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as recognise and celebrate the diversity of Indigenous culture, connections to the land and the waters of New South Wales. So, tonight, our wonderful panelists will be talking about their experiences, providing wisdom and tips on how to approach industrial training and what we can expect out of different fields. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Davisha, who is also an AIAA exec. And can we give a round of applause to Davisha?
Thank you. So thanks for having me today, AIAA. It's always good to be back at Ainsworth. Plenty of sleepless nights spent between these walls. I'm going to be honest, getting an internship in aerospace is not easy. It's a very niche field with limited spots available. The first thing but that doesn't mean it's impossible. The first step, I think, what you need is to have a very good resume and cover letter. Not in terms of content, although that helps, but in terms of format. Like a lot of people just have poorly formatted resumes. And one of the things I found incredibly useful was the UNSW Career Resume Helper. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they provide you with a score of your current resume and give you tips to improve yours. A bit of a conspiracy theory, but I assume that's what all the big companies would use as well to look at your resumes. So perfecting that resume and cover letter is very helpful. In terms of the cover letter, this is personally, I went with a bit of a template format. So what I like to do was, for my first paragraph, summarise my relevant skills to that role. And secondly, I talked about relevant projects I did in relation to the business. And finally, I mentioned about the program and how I would be the best person for them. So having those three distinct paragraphs not only makes it easy for potential employers to read through, but it also shows off your projects and that you've actually done research about the company as well. It shows that you're interested in it. Again, this is not a winning formula, but just an idea to keep in mind. What's it like? Okay, so my second tip would be to do as much outside uni work as possible. During my interview for Nova, the company I'm with right now, I didn't think I talked about grades at all. We didn't talk about grades or coursework at all. They just wanted to get to know me as intimately as possible. And especially with a role that I'm in, consulting, they want well-rounded individuals rather than people with excellent WAMs. Although that does help as well, having a great WAM. So what I did was, I did most of half my uni degree during lockdown, but there were still ways to be involved in the community. I joined a volunteering walking group, which, during peak lockdown sounds like a terrible idea, but it actually gave me a lot of insight and plenty of skills, from writing blog posts to organising Strava competitions, and all these challenges and involvements that I had, I brought straight into my interview, and it showed me off as more of a rounded person. And finally, just apply to everything, because you'd rather reject a company than put all your eggs in one basket. I got rejected hundreds of times, and instead of being disappointed, I used it to figure out where I could improve and move on to the next company. So, in terms of tips, those are what I would recommend. Alright, so on to the actual internship aspect. Before I go on to Nova Systems, I'll quickly touch upon my first internship with Regional Express. My time at Rex was quite short due to the virus that we all experienced for 2 years. So I actually only had 2 weeks out of my 6-week internship. However, I still learned a lot during those 2 weeks, especially about the individual systems on board of a plane and the processes of maintenance. I recommend you apply to more hands-on internships as well, because they give you a much better understanding of how the physical plane works and how they would have relation. I also gained a bit of insight into the business dealings of an airline as well, so something to keep in mind. Alright, so I've been mentioning this company this entire time. So what is a Nova system? To give the broadest description possible, Nova are a 100% true blue Australian-owned company that provide engineering and technological services. We operate out of almost every capital city in Australia, UK, New Zealand, Singapore and Norway. So I guess your next question would be, what do we do? Essentially our main areas are defence, essential services, government, space and commercial aerospace. I've personally worked on safety analysis methods using a UAV as an example during my internship program. We used a new technique to find areas of risks and mitigations for those risks. During the grad program, I started off working on the Spirit project. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but it's a satellite being launched by University of Melbourne, and I was involved with the ground station build for, one of the first Australian-built satellites. Currently I'm working with the E-7A Wedgetail surveillance aircraft out from Newey. I'm sure every company up here will talk about how great their projects are, but I feel like the one thing that differentiates Nova Systems is our focus on people. They're a very flexible company. They have an internship program that can be conducted remotely, and try everything to cater towards you. During the program, I was moving from Sydney to Wagga, and having those flexible hours really helped with the transition. In terms of wellness, during the internship program, we would regularly chat with the manager of the program, and she would run plenty of events to make sure we don't feel neglected during it. So, especially for me, since I was doing it all remotely, it was great to have someone to chat to and to make it feel like that I was involved with the company. And in terms of the grad program, we regularly chat with our grad managers, and we even get free mental health and psych services with the company. Professional development was emphasised during the internship. We were given the opportunity to attend multiple system safety courses at networking meetings, and the grad program steps it up even more, where they have an all-inclusive training program with technical courses such as systems engineering to non-technical such as public speaking and EQ. Finally, the events for the intern program consist of the aforementioned weekly events, but for the grad program so far, I've been to a grad summit where we've met all the other grads, had monthly lunches, a mid-year dinner, and plenty of other small events. So yeah, they really try to make you stay within the company because they understand how, how you are a useful commodity. So yeah, not too bad. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, or you can always email me at that address over there. Yeah, thanks everyone.
No, thank you, Felicia, for that presentation. I think a lot of students here will be able to take some critical feedback again, especially with the CV and the resume stuff. Our next speaker is Josh from Sabre Astronautics. Fortunately, he couldn't make it here today in person, so we've got him on a video call, but he's right here with us now. Please give him a round of applause.
All right.
Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, sadly I couldn't be here in person tonight. So sorry, guys. Bit of COVID stuff going on, so waiting for the result of a PCR test, and it was not the best move to come hop on a plane and fly to Sydney. So I'm giving the presentation from sunny, freezing Melbourne. But hi, I'm Josh. I am a junior space analyst at Sabre Astronautics, and I did an internship there from 2020 to 2021. I'm at UNSW in my 6th year doing a mechatronics and computer science degree. This should be my last ever semester, so very, very excited about that. And it's sort of been an interesting journey going from a non-aerospace, sort of non-space focused degree into the aerospace industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, who is Sabre? So you may have heard of us before, but if not, Sabre Astronautics is actually kind of a combination of 2 companies. One here in Sydney, working out of Chippendale, and then the other one is in the United States. It was founded 14 years ago, so it's actually kind of one of the oldest space-based companies in Australia. And we have 2 main areas of business. So the first one is mission planning, and the second one is mission operations. So the planning aspect is sort of a full stack space mission planning service where if you're, say, a university and you're looking to do some climatology research, you could come to us and be like, hey, we want to check out planktonic blooms on the eastern coast. And you're like, cool, what do you need to measure, with what resolution? And from that, we can determine a payload and then design a spacecraft or a constellation. And if the client wants it, we can also flesh out sort of everything from launch until end of life for that mission. And then mission operations would be if you've got an existing craft and you want someone to look after the day-to-day health, uplink and downlink of that satellite. And we have a very fancy mission operations center in Adelaide to do just that. So we got given a grant by the Australian government to create that mission operations center. And so it's just a bunch of nerds sitting in front of the TV screens and the computer monitors, big pictures of the Earth and the sun up in front of them. And they do all the operations for our satellites there. And then as a sort of extra thing on the side, we also do diagnostics services. So we also sort of help with mission design and planning, but from a sort of scientific R&D perspective. So we do diagnostics on spacecraft data and try and generate insights for clients that way. The way that I got into this company is kind of a sort of sideways different experience, I guess. I've been working in engineering companies since I was in high school, so since I was 17, because my grades have never been stellar. So I always kind of relied on the fact that I'd be working a buttload so that when I graduate, I would have a lot of experience. But one of the companies I ended up at sort of just towards the start of the pandemic wasn't what I was looking for, and it was a bit unsatisfying. And it was actually because I was doing some volunteer work with the Australian Youth Aerospace Association, one of the people I was working with there suggested that I apply for the Defence Industry Internship Program, which I had never heard of before. Hadn't heard of it at uni, hadn't seen it advertised, even though I sort of look into space employment channels quite frequently. And so DIP, as it's affectionately known, is run by QTAC worked in with the government and with defense and technology so that companies working with defense and on cutting edge sort of aerospace and defense technology get good exposure to the internship pool. And the great thing about DIP is that you've got a whole bunch of companies that participate, sort of like, I think it's up to 70 companies participate from around industry and government. And you actually don't know which company is which. All they do is they offer like a description and where they're based in terms of their state. And then you put forward a general cover letter and CV. And then they will allocate you based on your preferences. So you preference the companies based on the description of what they do and where they are, and then DIP will allocate you out. Sometimes you can kind of figure out which companies are which just through the description. It can be pretty obvious. Like Saber was saying, oh, you know, founded 14 years ago, and that was a pretty good giveaway that that was the company. And so I somehow managed to land a job there. And the beauty of that is DIP actually pays for your internship. And in addition to paying your pay, they also pay the company to employ you. So the company's keen to have you, you're getting paid, everyone's happy. It's a really, really cool program. And as you can see here, the applications are actually closing in, what is that, 11 days, something like that? Yeah, 10 days now. So I would absolutely get onto the DIP program QTAC website and check out what programs they have available this year. It seems they actually have a new technology stream, which is absolutely worth looking at. So that would be a big priority. If you don't take anything away from this speech except for that, definitely go to DIP. Yeah, so got that. And then I worked in that internship for, I think it was over the summer. So it was 3-month internship. And the way that Saber does it is they give you a small project at the start to kind of help teach you how to do space engineering things. And then you do a larger project for the remaining 2 months. And at the beginning, I turned my small project actually into my larger project because it looked like a small task at first. But I asked my manager if I could kind of expand on that, and he let me, and that turned into my whole first year of employment. I was also grateful enough to get ongoing employment after my internship, essentially just because I harassed my managers while I was working there. A few times pulled them aside and said, hey, I'm really keen on working here. Is there any possibility that I could stay beyond the end of the internship? And normally they don't take people on part-time because they wait for you to graduate and then they take you on after you've done your internship. But I managed to annoy them enough that they thought it was worth it because I lived close and they could, pay me less and all that kind of thing. So I got a casual job there, working 3 days a week. And now I've been working at Saber for 1.5 years. And in that time, there's been a whole lot of growth there. We've added, I think, 12 new members to the team. And we've also announced a partnership with Axiom Space in the United States. And we are offering astronaut tickets, looking to launch a scientist, payload specialist astronaut up to the ISS in 2024. So selection for one of the first Australian astronauts sent to the ISS will open next year, which is pretty bonkers. And so what did I do at my internship? One of the coolest parts about the space internship, I think for me, was finally finding a group of people that was as excited about a highly specific set of things as I was. So I'd done some space enthusiast stuff before, and I'd done like AYAA and did a few volunteer roles with them. But it wasn't until I actually got a space job because AYAA specifically has a mix of people who are interested in, planes and also satellites, but mostly planes because that's where the industry is in Australia right now. But getting into a space job was absolutely massive because everyone was super excited about really specific stuff. And every time that I would bring up some space news that I had read about or something on Twitter, they'd be like, oh yeah, I read that too, or I've got another article to show you. And that was a lot of fun. And dreaming of being in the space industry for a while, actually getting the job shows you that it's not just a dream and that stuff is reality, and you can kind of push that and achieve more. I worked on a lot of different software projects over the course of my internship, particularly because Saber is so open and you have lots of people sitting in one room working on different projects. So I would just walk around and ask people what they were doing and how I could help. And that gave me the opportunity to work on a lot of different stuff, ranging from Python-based application building, computer vision, the little bit of front-end development for like dashboards to represent solar weather, report writing, woohoo, and then also some simulation work, which was a lot of fun. And that was all over the course of 3 to 4 months. And I still, even now, I get to kind of pick and choose what I work on for large portions of the time. Another thing is that they gave us a lot of creativity and voice in our projects. So even if they assigned you a task to work on, if you had a different idea or if you had some suggestions for designs, you could take that to the manager and they would, think about it and then say no, or they would say yes, and that would turn into a few-week project for you. And yeah, having not studied aerospace engineering myself, they gave me all the time in the world to kind of learn and study with other engineers to improve my specific space knowledge to accompany kind of the mechatronics knowledge and computer science knowledge that I already had. And that was really nice that they kind of were patient with us in that sense. Also, everyone was awesome. You can see us there in the Blue Mountains having some fun. It was a fantastic time. And they also let us represent Sabre at networking events and things. So it was really good to kind of be taken seriously, but also, treated like we needed to learn things and educated along the way. So it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that's sort of a pretty good description of what the internship was like and how I got there. And I'm happy to answer lots of questions in the Q&A afterwards. Thanks.
Appreciate that insight into Sabre. So now our final presenter, before we head into our break, is Arfin. So he's also a previous member of AIAA, and he will talk about his time at Akin AI, where he's currently a mechanical and systems engineer. So let's hear it for Arfin.
All right, how are we doing tonight, guys? Participation? Good. Good. Thank you. I guess I found full screen. Cool. Well, while we're getting that up, I'm Arfin. Good to see some familiar faces and a lot of fresh ones, so from the new cohorts after me. I haven't been around campus very much, although I'm still a student, so I'll take my class after I finish work. Finishing up my degree in commerce and just finishing my thesis for aerospace as well. So, a little correction as well. I'm now actually a director at the company, so I'm no longer doing pure engineering. I look after some of our technical programs in the company. Although I've got so many stories about engineering as well. So Akin's a company, we work on AI helpers for the home. The reason I joined, as you'll soon see, is actually to work on space robots. So we have this idea that these characters that you can form a bond with can help you through your daily life. We have AI that help people run their homes for the disability sector, so high needs homes. And we also think that running a home has the similar kind of requirements technologically to run a space station. So we've branched out and are developing technology there, which is really awesome. So this is our little story time of industrial training. So that's me, and this is the shirt that I was wearing on that day. So a neat little Akin shirt, and I'll tell you the story about that. And I'm a storyteller, so this kind of awesome saga which you're about to see is unfolding from some humble beginnings, which started with a hackathon, gaining some momentum and working for the company more seriously. Some challenges we experienced, like COVID, working from home, supply chain disruptions, and of course working as a proper full-time employee as well, whilst studying full-time. So work-life balance is a good thing to be able to manage. That, and I also get to drink for free as an industry rep at your events. So yeah. Oh, that's not happening. Okay. Well, behind this banner, there is a Facebook event interest thing. I don't know what it is when I first found it. It's actually a Akin Jet Propulsion Laboratory Design Competition, right? Run by some Sydney University mechatronics organization. But like any good aerospace student, I saw that logo on the right-hand side. It said NASA. I was like, shit, I need to sign up. So I signed up. And basically, it led to this really awesome journey, which 1.5 years later, I'm employed in part of the industry, and if you told me 2 years ago that I'd be in the position where I am now, I would also call bullshit and hit you in the face for lying to me. But we're here, so this is I'll unpack the little lesson there too. So the hackathon was awesome. I pulled together some people that I knew from AOAA, so join AOAA if you want to meet cool people. We designed this kind of really crude-looking robot, and the brief was to make a robot that could help people at NASA assemble their future spacecraft. So it takes about 3 hours to load all these tools onto the places you need to build, things like the James Webb Space Telescope. And we would kind of crunch down on that time and reduce the margin for error. People are also wearing, clean room suits. It's very distracting, and it's a high-intensity environment. Anyway, I do the hackathon with these guys. We take second place, which is awesome. And that's kind of the first lesson. This kickstarted basically a 1.5-year journey, which I could not have foreseen at all, purely because I saw that little Facebook ad and I was just like, oh, I'll give it a go. So that's my takeaway from me, is just give things a try, no matter how easy. Pull your friends together, make it a fun process, and who knows where it will take you. My internship started shortly after that, and the brief to do that was to take our concepts and make something awesome and important. Now I'm kind of paraphrasing the several-day orientation they gave us, but you can see little sketches and 3D concept renders to actually create that guy there, which is the cake or the inspector. And we're actually developing and building robots that look like that and actually sending them off to NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory later this year, which is really fun. So, bit of an awesome mission there. And so I don't like word slides, but on the day-to-day, we would work on things like the design, build, prototype, test cycles for actually building things. Engineering to convert requirements into the actual project. We learned a lot about Agile, Scrum, the software development lifecycle, product management. I put in consulting and partners and stakeholder presentations in bold because they were actually my biggest takeaway from it. Getting out there and in front of people, doing what I like to call idea gladiating, where you're trying to prove what you think the approach is correct in front of a bunch of stakeholders is something you don't get practice in. Trying to sell people on your approach and your idea is not something you get practice in. So those were big takeaways. And of course we did CAD, user focus group, interviews, lots of documentation. It was a pretty intense internship. So I put a blurry picture for NASA meetings because I wasn't allowed to take pictures. So NASA meetings, that was cool. Getting to meet the people that you kind of idolize and they're working on really cool stuff. So that was the big kick for me. And I was so excited I took a picture of myself during that first meeting. So look at me go. I was wearing glasses back then. So things about Akin is we're actually a small company. We're a small team. Some would call us a startup. And you learn things from being in a small team. You move quickly, you have to adapt. And I kind of learned these few things. So each blue dot is actually a takeaway. So I learned about professionalism, being able to present your ideas and win people and get buy-in. Learning about wearing the necessary hat, so being able to actually fulfill any role that is needed is an incredibly useful thing about being in a company. And I would say that's why I got a job after I finished my internship. So putting your hand up to do things is important. We had insane deadlines because we are a small company and we're moving fast. You have to be resourceful, so if somebody gives you a task, it's better if you try and figure it out yourself, but not to the extent that you can't do the task and you're just pottering away. You kind of have to know when to speak up. And a bit of Bear Grylls is improvise, adapt, overcome. Things were changing every minute, every day. They would tell us to do one thing, and then the requirements would change. And the NASA guys said, we don't want that anymore. So you've got to adapt. So funny thing is, around that timing, I don't know if you guys watched the movie, but they made a meme of Hitler kind of being really angry at the people in the room. You guys know that one? Yeah. So I was there with our Chief Information Officer, and some of us were sitting in a circle, and he said, all right, we all know what we need to do. There's a 50-page report. Let's get it done by Thursday. Can we get it done by Thursday? It was actually Tuesday, so 50 pages. Instead of saying anything, all of us kind of looked nervously at each other, like, what the top this guy? So we eventually agreed, and you just learn how to work with it, roll with the punches. To do that, you have to speak up. You need to know when to speak up, because I think I sat in a big ideation room with our CEO, and a lot of our chief executives. And they asked us questions as interns, and of course, because we're Australian, we have the tall poppy syndrome, no one said anything, it was a pin drop silence. So that's kind of awkward, so don't be awkward, speak up. Funny thing is, one time we were really stressed as a team. We had a ton of deliverables, and I could see the cracks showing. We were making mistakes in our calculations. I'm slipping on the project timeline a little bit, but it was all under control. It was fine. We're going to work hard and get it done. But I kind of mentioned it to our leadership, and they kind of rocked up to the office with a bunch of beers and whiskeys and board games, and let off some steam to actually get back to the task at hand next week. So speaking up is fun. It's good. Something else I learned about was to work hard and play hard. But I left the blank there because you actually have to make time for yourself and decide what it is you want, right? So, we do a lot of work at Woodwork, but that's our Christmas party on our CEO's boat. That was the internship dinner we had. So we're all kind of unified in our efforts to achieve our mission. And you guys are only aware of the robot part. We have a completely other commercial division that I also work on. But it is awesome to meet people who have a mission. And so for me, I actually did a lot of sleeping. So I probably slept more with this load, to speak from a numbers perspective. Full-time uni and full-time work, I've slept more hours than I ever did just doing uni alone. So it's kind of like a bit weird how that worked out. But just a little kind of little story, anecdote for you guys to take on. And I also asked why, not what. So because we're engineers and because we love aerospace, we're quite obsessed with what we're working on. I want to work on a plane, I want to work on a satellite. I kind of leapt into this just going, why am I actually here? What do I want to learn? And I wanted to build up all the professional skills necessary to run my own company. I think I've far surpassed that, and I've got all these awesome connections, but it always starts with why. Read the Simon Sinek book, start with why. And one of the good pieces of advice that our old leadership gave me was the first day you step foot inside the office of an office, you kind of should be starting to think of why you're going to have to leave. What is your goal for being in this workplace? It's not just money, right? It really shouldn't be, in my opinion. You're here to grow. In your earliest years of your career, you can learn a ton. You're a sponge. So, I don't know how much time I've got left, but I'm industrially trained, you'd say. Spent 1.5 years at the company. My progression kind of looks like this. So I did the hackathon. We got second place. I did the internship. So the funny thing about the internship is on the application form, you can choose like senior or junior, right? No description. It just asks you, senior or junior. And there's a lot of people just kind of chose it because, maybe I'm not a senior, I don't know what to do. But I just chose senior because I think I've done a few things and I think I can talk about them, tell a story. So if you think you can do that, punch above your weight. You'll be in a little pain if you're in hot water, but I think pain is good because you learn from it. So I chose that, and what do you know? Later on, there was no criterion. They didn't check anything. The people who chose senior got to manage projects and get more life experience from the workplace than the junior guys, in my opinion. So then I did mechanical and systems design. So because we're a small team, we did the whole thing from requirements gathering all the way to the build and commissioning of the product. So that's that down there. And now I'm the programs director on our technical side of the company. So I'll work with software guys, hardware guys, stakeholders, partners, and it is a really good time. Lots of responsibility, but good time. And that's what I urge you guys to strive for as well. So what I do now, I manage, report on, and look after the delivery of our advanced projects. That's what we call kind of our robotics team. We have a commercial side of the company where we sell our AI and software and tablets. I look after our partnerships and deals and drafted those in excess of $8 million. Look after our project, products, operations, and commercial teams. So I kind of have to help out wherever attention is needed. And then the fun thing, it's kind of fun, we've been hiring, so interns, engineers, clerks, whatever. That's been actually an interesting process. And of course, my favorite thing is to actually learn from our awesome team, our CEO. The people you meet, it's a really small world, right? We we had this consultant, this engineering consultant, consult for one of our projects. So this is all work for the Australian Space Agency. We have a grant for that. And they were consulting, and I picked up the phone. They were asking something about the supply chain delay, and I was like, "Is that Jane, bro? Is that you on the other side of the phone?" So it's a small world. He's like, "Yeah, Arthur, right? Hey Adam, come over here. Arthur works at a kid." And so we had a little kind of get together on the phone. But it's a small world. You'll meet people. So some highlights. You're going to send a robot to NASA. You may as well put something funny on the PCB. So we put a picture of a beaver on it. It's hidden by a chip, actually, so it's pretty funny. We were on TV a few times because we're a flashy startup. We get a lot of media, and yeah, that was pretty funny, actually. That robot was not working like an hour before the shoot, so we put it together. During COVID, a lot of our hardware partners and suppliers actually couldn't ship their goods to us. So we had to work out this crazy zigzag line of people driving 5-kilometer radiuses to pass the parts over, because we were meeting a really critical deadline. So those are all 3D printed parts. You drove to my apartment, and it was midnight, and you gave me these space robot parts, which is pretty good. And that's a film shoot as well. So we were filming an ad with our partners, LG. It was this $100,000 film job, but things were breaking. So Murphy's Law is true. Things will always break, and it's good if you can be there on the ground to actually fix those things. So that looks like it's it. Happy to entertain questions. We are also looking for a person who's really good at CAD. So if you want to do some kind of internship and you're good at Fusion 360, find me somehow, some way. I'll leave it up to you so you can prove your resourcefulness. And show me something cool you've made on Fusion 360. So lovely to chat, and thank you for all your time.
Yeah, thank you for that, Arfin. Now we'll have a quick Q&A with the first 3 speakers. So if Arfin and Tavisha, you could just have a seat here, and I guess we'll get Josh on the call. So if you have any questions you want to ask, quickly chuck into the Slido now. We'll start reading them out from there. So if anything desperate you want to know, ask away.
Hey Joshy, good to see you again. Good talk, good talk.
So we'll have to do it loud for this one. Okay. So one of the first questions I saw was Arfin first. How do you manage uni work during your internship?
I'll just use my projection. How did I manage it? Yeah, that's a good question. So I spent a lot of time in the projects, right? So I used to run this team, like Ravage, and I also used to run some rocketry stuff. So I got pretty good at staying on my calendar. As long as you don't forget a due date, you probably will be all right. You don't have to get 100 in everything. I'm actually not a good student. So to that sense, like if you're trying to achieve that level of academic excellence, you cannot be slacking. It's not slacking off. But yeah, you can't be juggling all these balls. Actually, our chief financial controller told me today, life is like a bunch of balls and you're juggling them, right? Some of them are glass, so they'll smash when they fall. The others are kind of like they'll bounce back up so you can catch them. So it's a bit like that. You kind of just have to be aware of which ones are going to break and which ones you can catch. So a bit of a silly metaphor, but I hope you understand that like you just have to be on top of things. And it helps to have a lot of friends as well who are like-minded. So they're a good influence and they kind of keep you on track when you need to be. So they'll tell me to maybe not drink too much wine when we're doing rock climbing because I've got something on the next day. So stuff like that, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes, Tavisha, continuing the sentiment, how do you manage to
Well, I like Arfin. Fortunately for me, all my balls are made out of rubber because I did my internship during the summer, which made it a lot easier. But I also did a subject then I did a gen ed, but it was good having like that sort of balance where I would go to work for 8 hours a day from 8 to 4, but I would also have like this other thing to look forward to at the end of the day. I really enjoyed that course, and I feel like having both work where I was engaged in just pure engineering and then having something after work, because I did a psych course. You know, it also brought out that interest in that because it was something different to do. But yeah, in that sentiment of work-life balance and managing internships, I feel like you just need something that's completely different from what you are doing for work, or even uni, if you are juggling both university and work at that stage. So I don't know, finding a hobby or just maintaining a good calendar.
But it's a really good point. Like working full time and having the daily kind of in and outs actually helps a lot because you know you finish at 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it helps you compartmentalize, which is not something uni's like, oh, do this assignment,
Yeah.
figure it out. So,
I think going for a company with like flexible working hours definitely helps. Because you know, there was one day where I started work at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Just because I had like stuff to do in the arvo. But yeah, so don't know if that answers your question, but
and I guess finally, Josh, anything to add to that? How do you balance your life?
Yeah, flexible working hours slap, first of all, can definitely
Test to that. I'm like captain overcommit, so I also am not an excellent student. I have some pretty shocking grades, and I'm on attempt number 2 on a few subjects. But I think the important thing is absolutely get on top of your calendar. So like make sure you know when that stuff is due and start it in advance, because you don't know when work deadlines are also going to shift. Because you've got oh, my camera's frozen. All right, how's that? Am I back? Unfrozen? Excellent. You don't know when like work deadlines are also going to shift because you've got like uni to contend with and life and work moving. So having a good track on your deadlines is good. Having a group of friends or just a group of peers who are also working on the same subjects where you can have a group chat and share things back and forth and clarify things, super important. And also never be afraid to ask dumb questions to the tutors, even if it's weeks after the topic has like occurred. Like if you're catching up on lecture slides and you're a few weeks behind, just ask your tutors questions. That's literally what they're there for. They're paid to be there for that. So I think be a shameless question asker as well. Helps you balance all that stuff out and kind of go at your own pace while you're working and studying at the same time.
That's great, thank you. I think the next question will go to a specific one. So, Davisha, someone asked, what type of projects are you guys currently undertaking at Nova right now?
pretty much everything. There's so it's hard to quantify like one project. Like so one of our biggest I guess contractors is defence. So we have offices everywhere. So there's people in Adelaide working with naval. There's like in Canberra, there's a lot with space, and that also goes to Melbourne and other things. Yeah, a lot of land and maritime stuff. Yeah, it's hard to like sort of say one exact project, but in terms of a graduate program, they really give you the opportunity to pick a lot of projects, and especially with the internship as well. If you show an interest in a specific field, they will try to get you into that field. So during my interview, I talked about how much I enjoy doing space, and my first graduate rotation in Canberra, they got me with the space guy of the company. So yeah, just if you do apply, make sure you indicate where you are interested, and they do really try to cater towards you. Because I personally said I want to do more of a technical role, so they gave me the opportunity to move up to Newcastle and work more closely with the engineers, and I'm currently working under the chief eng of one of the aircrafts in Newcastle. So yeah, there's plenty of projects to go around.
No, thank you for that. I think Josh, we got a specific question for you. How competitive was getting into Sabre, and what are some of the most vital things you think you learned from there?
Okay.
So answering the first question, how competitive was it to get in? they kind of don't tell you in terms of, with the DIIP, they don't really tell you how many people you were up against, but it's normally like a few thousand. And in New South Wales, Sabre is, I think, second in terms of the most popular. I got, I don't want to say I got lucky, but my grades aren't fantastic. However, Sabre cares a lot about the culture fit and the character fit, and I spent a lot of time on my cover letter. One thing that I think is really important for cover letters and CVs is every time you write something, you should ask yourself the question, so what? Like if I said, oh, I worked on a project where we built a robot, they could easily go, oh yeah, so what? But instead, if you reframe that and you go, oh, I worked on a project where we built the robot and I designed, this component of the locomotion and it was really efficient. Or I invented a new filing system for the place I was working and it reduced the amount of times that we sent the wrong file to people, or something like that. If you can answer that question, so what? It's a point that's worth putting on your CV. The showing how keen you are in the actual cover letter and showing why you think the company is valuable, I think is really important. And just tying those links between what you've done and what the company offers and how you can kind of offer them more, what you bring that's kind of unique and about you, is very, very good. So using like specific language, as specific as you can, I think is really important. And I actually got rejected from the first round of getting into Sabre. So I picked up another job at an industrial design company. It's pretty funny, actually. I picked up a job there. I argued for higher pay. I signed a contract that gave me higher pay. And on the car ride home, I got a call from QTAC saying, hey, did you still want that job at Sabre? And then they offered me the internship there. And then what was the second question? Sorry, the first one was how competitive was it to get in? And what was the second part?
What's the most vital lesson you learned?
Vital lesson I learned. Oh. I think an important lesson I learned was
project and doing what the project is asking of you. Because as an engineer, you can get really, really
excited about solutions and different ideas and going down the brainstorming path for days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks. But you're actually working in a business and they have deadlines and they need you to pick something and make it a good version. It doesn't need to be the best version, but it needs to be a good version because you can, sit there and conceptualize until the cows come home. But eventually you need to choose something and sort of find the line between, okay, have I researched this enough? Am I confident enough in this design or this concept before I kind of barrel down the path of prototyping and testing it?
Oh no, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely. Words of wisdom. I think for Arthur now, you did mention in your presentation, I guess you did kind of grow in the company yourself. What's next for you? What do you reckon your next steps are?
Well, that's an interesting one. I've never said it in front of this many people. I want to actually start my own company after this. So I think I have this kind of really awesome opportunity to learn from people who've done it successfully several times, done it well, and I'm just kind of absorbing all these experiences like a sponge. There are many situations every day where I have to ask myself, did I make the right decision? Did I communicate this correctly? Because a lot of backlash could land on me. But being in the hot seat is kind of, you can't really replicate that. You just can't. So I enjoyed it, I learned from it, and I'm going to take it into this next thing that I build. So stay tuned.
Thank you for that. Youth Anisha, what's next for you?
Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? I guess next for me, it really depends because part of the graduate program is you go on different rotations to get different ideas of what you want to do. But I feel like I see myself in more of a soft skills role towards the end. So either in management or as an exec or as a general manager, it's I see myself more working with people rather than working on a specific design or working with regulations. I feel like I'm more inclined, and I feel like with my skill sets I'll be better chatting with investors, chatting with manufacturers, and chatting with people like that. I feel like that's where I would want to be headed. But yeah, again, my taste changed pretty quickly, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I guess finally, Josh, what are your next steps?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually angling to create a new business department within Sabre, centering around
mission design, with myself sort of as the lead on that, because I think that it's a sort of an underutilized resource we have, all these sort of mission design expertise, and I'd like to expand that and possibly engage more with our astronaut program and our robotics program, to kind of flesh those things out. So definitely working some more at Sabre on those kinds of projects. Eventually, I'd like to be an astronaut myself, ideally a mission specialist in either robotics or habitation. So trying to kind of gear my career towards those things. And if I do get sort of more of a managerial position at Sabre, trying to implement some things that get us on track to make Australia better with our space robotics and habitation technology.
That sounded very cool. I think we'll get one final. So Finn, I think one of the questions was how much do you travel for your job? You didn't mention, I guess you're a director. Does that?
COVID is travel, but I mean, I guess I have one of my first trips coming up where we're commissioning the JPL stuff, so we'll be able to visit the NASA labs and do some road shows. That'll be really exciting. So that'll be my first time properly traveling overseas for a kin and over to the States, so that'll be fun. Yeah.
Sounds very cool. So Visha, I think you did mention in your presentation about having that good mix of extracurriculars. I think some of the students here asked, what are some ones that you did that worked, and what are some things they can do, or what do you suggest from like a successful candidate's point of view?
So currently my two loves, I guess, are reading and running. So it really depends on what you feel good at, and then picking the complete opposite of it. So I was a terrible runner, but now you go to park runs every Saturday, and then you try to build yourself and mainly set a goal for yourself. With reading, I try to get 30 minutes in every day, and I feel like that helps in other aspects of my life. Like I'm using my phone less. I'm trying to plan around making sure I get those 30 minutes in. Yeah, again, you can pretty much do anything as a hobby, like baking. But yeah, make sure you have something to take your mind off your usual day-to-day work.
Thank you for that. And I guess final question for Josh. You did mention it a little briefly in your presentation. What was the transition like from a non-aerospace field to an aerospace field? I guess more as like a student as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think if you're sort of lucky enough to not having to work directly on like aerostructures or like satellite structures and like the internal infrastructure, you can apply a lot of generalized engineering knowledge to space systems. Space is just effectively a highly constrained design space with a lot of interesting problems that you have to kind of dodge and weave in and out of to make a design that works. I found it to be a lot of fun, and I think I was lucky to be at a company where they kind of fostered that curiosity and let me go, hey, I'm not an expert on space stuff. What should I be reading? What should I be watching in order to get myself across that line and bring myself up to the mark? And it was just a lot of fun. You've got a lot of homework, I think. Like when you go home, a lot of videos to watch on the bus, a lot of things to read before bed. And you get caught up in sort of the culty aspect of space, I think, quite a bit. That helps. As a student, it didn't really affect my studies that much. There was not a lot that I kind of learnt in terms of space specific knowledge that I could then bring back into finishing UNSW. But keeping that sort of general curiosity and student mindset wherever you work, I think, is always a positive thing. Making sure you're learning and being prepared to be an idiot everywhere. It's never being the smartest person in the room is incredibly boring. You want to be really dumb so you can learn a lot always.
Yeah, thank you for that as well. Yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of the first Q&A session. If we just have a round of applause for our three lovely speakers.
Some questions that you probably didn't get to ask before. So we're going to be going to the next round of presenters. So we have up next, we have Winnie, who will talk about her experiences interning at both Quickstep and Nova Systems. Can we please welcome Winnie?
Hi, yeah, I'm Winnie, and that's my dog, Toffee, by the way. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Enough, our beloved host, to put me right after Arkin. And my slides are horrendous compared to this. So yeah, I interned at Nova Systems at Quickstep from November to February, and then January to June. So totally, I would have done 120 days, but I put 30 on the Woo agreement. So I only registered 30 for each one, and I wrote the report for both of them. So what does Nova Systems do? Tavisha already told you, so it's basically a consulting engineering company. They do everything, but more revolved around what I did was that they competed for a grant from the Australian government when it gets put out. So what did I do at Nova Systems? So when you sign up for the internship, there's about 50 interns that get selected, mostly Adelaide-based. I think me and Tavisha were from Sydney that we got chosen, and then you get split into 2 or 3, and then you get put into projects. So I got Project Amos, so that was the Australian lunar rover. The aim was to do the Moon to Mars project, and that we wanted to work on Australia's first lunar rover. So what did I do? I did systems engineering to project preliminary design, and we had to attend courses for systems engineering because aerospace students, we don't really get to do systems engineering unless I think it's an elective year we're thrown into it. So I had to learn the entire concept during the time of the internship. We worked on COSPAR documents, and then we implemented NASA system engineering life cycles and understanding subsystems of the lunar rover. We actually worked with NASA engineers. We would call them online, obviously, so couldn't be there. But yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, and then we did research. So I did in-depth study of lunar space environmental considerations. I did a lot of work on lunar regolith. So that was some of the stuff that I was helping the team with. And yeah, the project was in Adelaide, but I was working from home in the Sydney office. And yeah, they sent a laptop to us to work on. So what did I learn? I was thrown in the industry and having to take a lot of initiative. So apart from studying systems engineering myself, I'm in Sydney and everyone's in Adelaide. So there's so much you can do over a Teams call. So whenever I can't do anything, I have to be the one to stand up and say, hey guys, what's going on? Help please. So then so what I learned was that I had to develop organizational skills, meeting important deadlines, and working in strict environments. So basically I had to put everything in a OneNote. I had my own planner. I'm not that organized. This internship forced me to be organized. I had to get up and then also match Adelaide's time zone as well. So we did technical writing and research. Luckily, in UNSW, you've learned a bit of technical writing, but this is now in an industry level type of technical writing that you had to learn. So yeah, also exposure to engineering consulting, which is very different from manufacturing and CAD design and stuff that you would do if you do somewhere not consulting. Challenges I face. So making big decisions and challenging ethical and moral issues. I was sitting there and then the safety officer was saying hold on, if you're gonna have a space mission and say the rover's gonna explode, how many people are we gonna kill? We wanna kill at least 1, right? I'm what do you mean at least 1? They were just you'd rather 1 than 10. I was alright. So yeah, supervisors are absent. they're very busy, they have a lot to do, so it's a lot of self-learning, self-discipline, and distributing work amongst teammates. It's harder online, but you just have to do it. Yeah, and also the weight and importance of the project. You're always constantly thinking like, oh my god, like this is defense, if I mess up this one thing, like it's gonna, you know, like ruin lives and stuff. So constantly had that pressure, but yeah, suck it up. Oh, challenges like the Ratatouille incidents. So, context, there's a Teams chat for each of the intern teams, right? And I don't know in defense that they can see everything you do when they send you your laptop. So I made a joke saying like, we just talk a lot of shit on the chat, and then I said, Nova IT officers reviewing our laptops and seeing all the stuff we said. And I sent that meme. Next day, IT messages the chat like, which one of you is downloading Ratatouille memes to your personal device? So if you want to talk, go on Messenger, don't do this. So how does this relate to my degree? So designing a space mission was what I did in Nova Systems, and at the time I was also doing Aero 9500, so they kind of interlink between each other. What I learned in 9500 I could apply into Nova Systems, what I learned in Nova would apply to 9500. Systems engineering, you learn a bit about that in Aero 31110, like we just recently did that, so it definitely helped, you know, even though my quiz marks aren't that great. So working in a team and also exposure to the aerospace industry. So how did I get my Nova internship process, and application process? So I found out about them by attending the AIAA networking night, and I didn't know what it was at first. And then when they were there, they had representatives, and I basically asked questions about the company and culture. And then I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, I'll apply online. So I actually got a phone call from them, and they asked me about like my interests, what projects I wanted to do, and like why I wanted to work at Nova. And yeah, then you do the boring stuff, which is like signing contracts and sorting out the will agreements, which I advise, sort this out and chase them up about it. They did not respond. Yeah, this is photos. Can't take photos of the projects in the office, so that's me in the bathroom with my and yeah, that's me with my fresh drip over there at the office outside. And then that's actually a Christmas lunch with the Sydney office. They had no idea who I was, and they were like, oh, you're from Adelaide. I'm like, no, I'm here. Alright, so what does Quickstep do? That's my second place. So it overlapped with Nova Systems, so in a way I had to do a lot of time management. That was something that I had to learn. So it's an aerospace composite manufacturing company, and they basically work on like composites. Like I think they've been a sponsor for AIAA rocketry before, but they mainly work on defense projects like the F-35 and the C-130. So what did I do at Quickstep? So I was put into the process engineering team, so that's overseeing like what actually happens rather than like production side of it, where they're more hands-on with the parts. So I was providing industrial engineering support to the F-35, JSF Lightning, and C-130 Hercules, but more so much the F-35 side. So I was participating in process improvement projects and improving product quality. How can we do this faster? How can this be more cost effective? And then I closely work with the operators for that manufacture the parts for engineering development and improvement. And yes, I did quite a lot of CAD for tooling as well, and also to support the parts. And some technical report writing. So what did I learn? So I had to work in an interactive team with operators. So your terminology when you work with engineers is very different when you work with operators. You will solve something in your own way, but they have no idea what you're talking about. So you learn to basically adapt and improvise, like what Arvin said. So yeah, people work in different ways, and yeah, I was working with ITAR requirements, which at the aerospace and military grade projects. This is bad because I'm so loud. I always talk, you know, can't keep quiet. I managed to do that, don't worry. So yeah, ITAR requirements, and then like we got in-depth exposure to different types of projects. Like right now I think they're doing the Boeing space satellites over at the United States, and yeah, like I was able to do some CAD design for the parts and learn about composites. How fun is that? Like laying up, like curing, assembly, and quality of composite parts. So yeah, challenges I face. It's hard to understand the terminology when you first get into it. They have their own little culture, but there's also technical terms that, like, they're all talking about it and you have no idea. And the way to overcome that is just ask, listen, and just do your own research. Yeah, people don't actually cope well with improvement and change. There's a lot of issues at the company that, for example, you're like, okay, we're going to engineer this part this way now because what you're doing is not compliant. But the operators have been there for like 50 years and they're going to be like, no, I've been doing it my way, I don't want to change. So as an engineer, you need people skills to work around that and just work with the team. And once again, the weight and importance of the projects. So how it relates to my degree, I was doing structures, 3410, and like that basically helped me like understand composites as well. What I learned in industry actually helped me more for uni. So it wasn't what I learned at uni, because I could physically see the parts. I'm like, okay, like, so that's what Garth is talking about. And it also helped me with 3110. So yeah, with manufacturing, I've learned how to use CATIA there as well. You learned that in 41110. I think some people are using it for 3110 as well. And also working in the team and meeting aerospace engineering standards. Like I finally can read inches and pounds now. Google Convert. So how did I get my internship? So I was applying online, and so I actually personally asked them like how did I get selected? So there's like 150 to 200 applicants each time, and then basically HR checks your resume and then picks the top 5 or 6, and then they get sent to your supervisor, and then they would then give you a phone interview or a Zoom interview, and then they bring you in person for the site visit. And what I realized was that my supervisor told me initially, like they didn't think that I would be an intern, but then when I actually reached the in-person site visit, they were like, okay, like vibe check, like, you know, which is cool. Oh, yeah, this is me and my supervisor, like we've reached that stage where we're chill. I made him to the heart to show him. He has that hung up in his office now, so yeah. So advice, always take initiative. Like, I know you guys have done like group work now, and do you have that moment where everyone's just sitting there and no one really says anything in the group chat? Speak up, do something. So you need to take initiative to get things done. And the faster you do something, you can do other things. Don't tell Quickstep this, but like, I was doing my assignments there. So speak up on your mistakes and ask when you need help. Especially in defense, when you make a mistake, it's critical. Like, the worst thing you want is the FBI knocking on your house. You know? Like, develop a good resume. Advice from my supervisor was that my resume was good, but like there was just too many things going on. Like, I was just doing so many things that he thought I couldn't commit to one thing. So make sure that you are very honest with them at first. I told them in the call, I was like, I'm also working at Nova at this moment, but I'm able to time manage myself, so pick me. Academics are important, but not as important as hands-on experience. I know everyone has different ways of learning, but you need to physically be there to see how something works, because like theory is not always practice. And be prepared for the company you're applying for, show interest. In the cover letter, I think Joshua was saying as well, you need to show that you're interested in the company, you know what they're doing, why do you want to work for them, and yeah, like on the day of the site visit at Quickstep, I was asking all these questions about composites as well. And chase up via emails and contacts to complete your will agreement, because once again, they never reply, you need to talk to them. I'm glad they did come today to see me roast them. So, and also be, like, I know this is cringe, but like be yourself. They want to see personality, right? Like, what defines you as a person in the workplace? How well you get along with your coworkers. As you can see, when I left Quickstep, I got them these cupcakes. It says, sorry for your loss. And yeah, the company misses me. So yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Winnie. It was really enlightening. Alright. That was meant to sound sarcastic. But joke, I'm joking. So yeah, thank you for that. So our next speaker is Mehul, who did a non-traditional training at Sydney Airport, and we'll talk about his experience. So let's welcome Mehul. One thing I should remind everyone is please keep adding questions to the Slido, so we have questions to ask during the Q&A, but also during the Q&A, don't hesitate to put your hand up and ask questions. But yeah.
Yes. Alright, good evening everyone. My name is Mehul Kumar Agarwal and I'm a 4th year aerospace engineering and mathematics student. Ravi asked me to be a part of this workshop probably 3 to 4 weeks ago, and I instantly said yes without realizing that this is going to be 8th week when we need deep in our submissions, and I still have not finished my internship training, and this is the time when companies will be advertising their internship and graduate opportunities, and I took the challenge. Well, that's what engineers do, right? So I did my internship with Sydney Airport. What did I do? So most of the airports around the world, they store and distribute fuel inside the airport. They do it, they use conventional jet fuel basically. However, in the upcoming years, the market is going to be captured by sustainable fuels such as hydrogen, SAF, which is basically sustainable aviation fuel, and even electricity. Sydney Airport wanted to know what percentage of market will be captured by what form of energy source. So basically in my internship I had to predict the future and give them a carbon emission profile up to 2040. The second part of the project was to create a roadmap for the infrastructural development required to handle and distribute different kinds of energy sources in the upcoming years. Basically, if an aircraft is hydrogen driven, what kind of infrastructure they will need inside the airport. So, what did I learn during my internship? Well, firstly, I learned that hydrogen industry is going to be booming in the upcoming years. Australian government and CSIRO are working collaboratively towards a hydrogen-driven future. Airbus, by the year 2035, are going to come up with their zero-emission aircrafts, which is again driven by hydrogen. And lastly, I got to know about various startups such as Zero Avia, Right Spirit, and Hard Aerospace. Secondly, electric aircrafts are still a long way to go because let's just say there is a subsonic airliner, and if you convert the amount of fuel required for landing and takeoff to electrical energy, and if you scale it up for, let's say, a fleet of 60 aircrafts, the amount of electrical energy that would be required to charge just a single fleet of aircraft for 1 day and just for landing or takeoff is going to be equal to the amount of electrical energy required by Sydney Airport annually. So I don't think so that currently it's possible, but maybe somewhere in the future. I also got to know that you can actually produce jet fuel from forestry and agricultural waste by using captured carbon from the air and use cooking oil, and that's what we refer to as sustainable aviation fuel. I got to know about the manufacturing and of SAF and how it's going to dominate in the market in the upcoming years. Lastly, I realized the importance of simple design changes in engineering. So, if you haven't done aerodynamics yet, you're going to learn about this. But when a wing is in the air, it has got high pressure flow under it and a low pressure flow above it, and they interact at the wing tip. They form a vortex, and that increases drag, that increases the fuel consumption. This problem was solved in 1700 with the introduction of winglet. Nobody took it seriously until 1970 when the fuel prices started to soar. So my point is that progression with what we have right now, which is conventional jet fuel aircraft, it can be very slow, but they can be very effective in short-term solutions because we can't straight away jump onto new technologies like hydrogen or electric. What are the challenges that I face? So, pursuing your teammates can be equally important as pursuing your client. there is a very high chance that if you work in a team environment, there's going to be one person who's just going to shoot your idea without even delving into it. And that's where you have to be very patient and make them listen to you. It can be equally challenging if you are not ready to take inputs from your teammates and you think that your idea is foolproof and that there are no loopholes in it. Second thing is that it's very hard to trust people nowadays, but you have to build that trust with your teammates. Basically, you're going to treat them how you want to be treated by your lecturers and professors. You're going to cut them some slack. So let's say if somebody didn't meet a strict deadline, so you understand the problem, you try to find a solution, you move on. If somebody's work didn't reach a certain standard, you give them a sandwich feedback which starts with a positive one, goes to a critical one, and then goes back to a positive one. Or maybe even better, help them with it. Lastly, and this is one of the most important, that you got to know what went wrong with your project, and if it was a situation where multiple teams were competing, you got to know what other teams did wrong as well. Because there is no better way of learning than to understand what was the mistake, and so that you don't make the same mistakes again. Accomplishments. So what did I achieve through my internship? Well, firstly, I achieved the satisfaction of finishing 21 out of 60 days of my industrial training, and that also was a very successful project. The second thing was I gained skills. Before the internship, I didn't even know about Google Data Studio. Cut to 21 days after, I was pro at using it. So we basically had to present our results in a graphical manner, and Google, being an engineer, it has to be aesthetic as well. So Google Data Studio actually helped me a lot, and I gained the skill of using that software in the span of 21 days. Of course, I have work experience now. I know how to meet strict deadlines. I also knew that since I'm doing engineering, but when you work in a real life project, which is actually going to bring a change in the real world, you push yourself a little bit harder, and you tend to understand your capabilities as a teammate and as an individual. And obviously, I enhanced my communication and soft skills. Lastly, I'm a bit cooler now because I know about airport operations, how they store their fuel, what kind of storage capacity they have, how they distribute it inside the airport. I also have few of the airport employees on my LinkedIn. It doesn't benefit me with the extra baggage allowance when I'm traveling internationally, but it's still something. Okay, this is what I created on Google Data Studio. I just thought it's very cool, so I should just share it with you guys. Process. So the first step was you have to enroll into the Moodle course page of industrial training. It has got various modules on how to write a good resume, how to write a cover letter. They have some quizzes as well, which I suggest you do, even though it's boring, but it just stays somewhere with you. Second thing was that keep an eye out for the opportunities. UNSW advertises non-traditional internship opportunities on the Moodle page. Being an international student, there were certain restrictions about not having PR or citizenship, but the advertisements that UNSW make through work integrated learning, they don't really require the PR and citizenship. And the last thing was, of course, apply for it and give your best during the assessment center. The most important thing that they're going to see is that they want to see the relevance of what you're pursuing in the college to what you will be actually doing in the industry, and you have to show that it's very relevant and how much passionate you are about it. Okay, so few advices. The first one is definitely network as much as possible. It's great to see so many people come out here today, so make sure you make friends with as many people as possible. Make sure you leave at least one person in the room who, when goes out of this room, talks about you in a good manner, and that might bring you a career-changing opportunity, a life-changing opportunity, whatever. And next is start revisiting your resume, make those small changes required. As Tanisha said, that UNSW has this UNSW resume checker, which actually works using AI, and they just check how your resume is relevant to your degree, and it can be very useful. Though there are few limited attempts you can use that checker for, but it's still useful. use LinkedIn like it's your Instagram. Just go crazy with it, send follow requests to companies, recruiters you want to work with, the companies you want to work with. I started following Shell right after I finished my internship, so that I know what's going on in the field of sustainable aviation fuel. I followed CSIRO so that I know what's going in the hydrogen industry. If you apply for a job, send a message to the recruiter with just an introductory message sharing your profile. It's not going to do anything bad. They might just look at you as a very proactive individual, and it might just benefit your application. Lastly, and this is something that I did, I don't know how many of you have already done Aero 4110, and you might be doing it next term, but there are two authors who have written books on conceptual design of aircraft, Raymond and Rostam. Worship them. It's really going to benefit you. I have benefited a lot from that course. That course taught me teamwork, aerodynamics, the application of aerodynamics, application of thermodynamics, stability, CAD, MATLAB, performance analysis, etc., etc. And I'm saying this because I have talked so much about that project in my interviews. I've seen people getting impressed. Though I've gotten rejected, but that's not the point. You get to learn a lot, and as I said, it's a university-based project, and you work in a team environment, you know a lot of people, you build bonds, and that might just work somewhere ahead in the future for you. So thank you, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks so much, Mel. I actually didn't know they were doing that kind of work at Sydney Airport, so thanks for that. So now our next speaker, we have Mildred, who was also our chair from last year, and she'll talk about her experience at ExecuJet and Resonant. So let's welcome Mildred.
Thank you. I actually don't know why I still need to be here, because I think all the speakers before me already covered everything I needed to say, so I'll keep it quite short and simple, because I'm sure you guys already had a very long day. So you guys can actually go. So I actually interned at ExecuJet and ResMed. I got into ExecuJet in 2021 between term 1 and term 2. So technically I was supposed to start in January during the holidays. I think as Winnie kind of already told us many times that I think will agreements in the IT departments are very slow. So you really do have to chase them up. And because ExecuJet, I was actually doing a traditional unpaid internship, which many people might not be, I guess, interested in because it's not unpaid. But I feel like it's kind of a good thing to just really be open to learning. At that point when I think I was start of my third year, I was more interested in, I guess, trying to learn a lot of things, gain experience, and I kind of realized if I got experience, I can put that on my resume, and the next time I apply for something else, it will be easier. So I wasn't too worried about money. Obviously, money is good, but for everyone here, you kind of just really want to get experience. Don't be afraid to apply for unpaid internship as well. And how I got to ExecuJet was someone, I don't know if you can see from that photo, so the one in the glasses is Edmund. He was actually a ex-chair of AIAA. So I actually got through because I was, I guess, one of his mentees, and knowing him from the society as well, he was kind of just messaged me saying, I need someone to work at ExecuJet, would you be interested? Do you know anyone that's interested in to be an intern? And I was like, that's the perfect opportunity. I put my hand up, applied, didn't know how to do any interviews, nothing. He was like, okay, you're in. And I was like, great, that's amazing. That's the ideal process. You don't have to do anything. And yeah, so I got in, and I was working in the quality assurance, so QA for short, department, and also the MRO department, which is maintenance repair operations in ExecuJet, which they kind of, I guess, not only do they do business stuff, they maintain aircraft as well. So ExecuJet is a private jet chartered company located in Mascot. So I don't know if you guys ever drive past the Krispy Kreme at night time across the airport. You'll see ExecuJet right across it. So that's where I worked. And I was actually working part-time with Executive in term 1 and with full-time uni. So that was kind of a crazy moment where you have 3 courses, 3 hour classes, and trying to manage your time doing part-time there as well. And I think it was kind of when COVID kind of died down, where I was able to actually work on site. So I was only there for 2 days a week, and then the other days I was at uni or at home doing anything else. So, and for ResMed, so ResMed is a biomedical company. I'm an aerospace student. I don't know why I kind of got in there. I went to the interview. I applied as any other student, and I wasn't actually expecting a, reply from them. And then suddenly they sent me an email saying, "Oh, do you want to be part? Like you got through the next stage." And I got in. Was ready to have everything prepared on the because the online interviews, I had everything prepared on the other second screen monitor. Had body parts, I don't know anything about biomedical, have the mitochondria, powerhouse themselves, I have that all up. I was like, okay, I'm ready, if they need to ask me anything about biomedical, I'll make something up on the spot. But what they asked me was do you have any multimedia experiences? Can you do have you worked in a team before? Have you done projects, which is something that everyone's already done, again, throughout uni. You guys make PowerPoints before, you guys make videos now, I think in Design 2000. So you kind of already have all those experience as well. So, and the reason, actually, how I got into it, I asked the manager actually at the end. She kind of just was interested, oh, I saw you do aerospace, and my daughter was really interested in aerospace, so that's why I kind of chose you. And I was like, what's the point of me preparing everything? So yeah, I got into the quality assurance department as well, and the projects team, in I think last year December, and I recently finished with the QA team in May, so I still can't believe that I've been with them for 6 months. It's supposed to be a 3 months internship, but they actually extended it because I was part of a project where they want me to stay on. And at the moment, I actually am doing thesis with them with the pressure system team, and I can talk more about it, how I got thesis with them later. So I did full-time during the summer with them, and then now I'm part-time, so kind of very flexible with them. And it was also work from home throughout the whole, I think, summertime where I was at home with my laptop, and then sometimes I can actually go in when I can. So, yeah. And I think the roles and responsibilities, so at ExecuJet, I kind of did a lot of data analytics stuff, so whatever they had on the safety department, we kind of put those in Excel. I also forgot to mention that previous slide, you might see someone that you guys might recognize there. That's David, he's actually sitting right there. So he can back me up on anything I say here. And if you guys have any curious, I think, any questions about executive, you can also ask him there as well. So during that time, I was working with David on a lot of spreadsheet stuff. That's, back then I actually had not really used how I got thesis was, so something I started in ResMed was I was working with a team of 4 other interns. So technically I wasn't actually part of their internship program. They just needed someone to make some videos for them, so they decided to hire me. So that's how I kind of got in through the whole process. And throughout that time, I kind of, I think all the speakers said, to speak up. I basically messaged my manager, can I have a chat with you? I just want to get to know you, want to get to know how the company works, because I felt like I really should pick up something because I thought later in the program. And from then on, she was very surprised with that. She was actually happy that I actually messaged her. And she gave me a very long list of other employees for me to reach out. So I started this thing called virtual coffee chats, where I basically message and email random people in the company, even directors and VPs. Because I was like, I'm not, the last thing I can say is no. So I kind of just emailed them saying, oh, I'm curious as to your role. I'm just a student here, kind of want to learn the experience and things like that. And throughout that, I think within 4 weeks, I kind of talked to 20 different employees each day kind of thing. Just for 15 to 30 minutes throughout that time. And I was curious whether I had someone that was doing thesis with them, so I was like, oh, that's something I need to do as well. I'm reaching my end of my 30, I should really have a topic for thesis and I need something to do. So I basically went around and messaged people saying, is it possible for me to do this here? Someone said, yeah, I think so. I can find someone to figure out if there's a project online. And then someone else, yeah, I think, I told you that. I was like, yeah, I think I know someone else. And I kind of went through 5 different people. Eventually someone said, yeah, I think I have some projects. Let me see if I can find someone to supervise you. And that was another whole process of talking to different people. And eventually someone said yes, so now I'm actually doing some logistic copies of material with them for their devices, which is the SM11, so that's the device that residents are currently working on. So I've been researching and doing experiments for them in their adequate chambers and other experience of community with pieces. And during that time, we also do a lot of presentations, updating what we find out, and having regular meetings. So that's what I've done in resident. And I think this last slide where any highlights and key takeaways. So being at executive was actually really cool because I was doing aerospace. I actually really like planes, and that's one reason why I chose to do aerospace. So it was good to actually go hang out and get a tour around them. And the day that we went in, we were actually able to go into their hangar and see how their planes work, and even inspecting the jet flights. Pretty much touch it. And also, I'm going to say, just take the rides. Actually, able to run the test. So that was something I was really cool with. One day, I actually got it, but actually, I didn't. So that was really cool. And another thing was actually working at the airport. So I was actually, I think we're on site on the tarmac. So because of COVID, it's actually very quiet now. So back when I worked, there wasn't any planes, but I would expect that when I worked there, you will keep planes going back and forth really loudly. And during resident, I think I got to work with a lot of people across the globe as well. Something that was funny when on the first day I showed up, they had this all hands meeting, which is basically everyone in the company go on Zoom and have this big meeting to catch up. And I didn't do my research, that's my fault, but I didn't know how big resident was. So I went on that Zoom and I just kept looking at that Zoom number, going from 50 and then 75, then 100, then 200, then 300. And I was like, that's a really big company. And it was actually quite surprising because I think throughout this whole time at resident, I think I got to know maybe at least a quarter of the team, everyone in the Sydney base. And because I think even yesterday I was just running around the whole company, just talking to people, I know you kind of thing. So yeah, and as I mentioned before, the virtual coffee chats, I think that's something really everyone should do. I think because even if it doesn't have to be virtual, you can do normal coffee chats as well. But even for talking to supervisors or pieces, or if you do get an internship, you really want to get to know. Which I think everyone already mentioned, you want to grow your network, and you guys are already doing the first step, which you guys are already here. So a challenge for everyone. By the end of tonight, hopefully you guys can actually meet someone new, say hi to them, get to know them, and yeah, so I set a challenge for you guys tonight. And also, I guess, a hard look at actually start that was really cool. And yeah, so that's what my team said. We also got to go to Managed Society. I guess it's not that fun of place,